It's a family that is 400 years old, and there are more than 10,000 of us in the world. Recently, we had a reunion in Jerusalem's main conference hall. We hadn't met for over 30 years. Almost 2,500 of the tribe's 10,000 members come to the reunion. We wear name tags, for many of us have never met. At a time when continuity is not certain, when family ties are said to be loosened, I set out to discover my family roots. Can you imagine what it's like to be a member of a family of 10,000 and 2,500 show up in one place? Family legend says we are originally from Spain. The book of genealogy starts in Prague. In the 17th century, we moved to Lithuania. At the end of the 18th century, our ancestors moved to a town called Shklov, where we took on the name of Rivlin. In 1809, the first member of the tribe arrived in Palestine. His name was Hillel. Family branches followed him throughout the century. Other branches emigrated to the United States, England, and France. Some remained in Russia. We were spread out in the world, and we survived. But it was in Jerusalem that the family became a tribe, one that lived close together within the old city walls. They took care of each other. Some of them even married each other. There is no picture of Hillel. We can only imagine what he looked like. But we were celebrating his arrival in Jerusalem almost 200 years ago. Why do we all come?
I want to recognize, to see my family. It's all my family. It's a nice feeling. You are in the same place and you see over 3,000 people and everyone here is your family. It's a wonderful feeling. If it's cost me a lot of money, but if I have to come again, next year I will come again.
My mother was Rivlin, my grandfather who even was born in Shklov. All my childhood I heard about them. Therefore I wanted to see how they look like.
Hi. Have you seen anything like this before? No. What do you think? What do you think about that?
Very impressive.
Do you feel like this is family?
Yes.
Yeah?
Well, I just wonder where I got this obsession with the family. Where do you think this mishugas comes from in me? My parents, please tell me.
You were an outlaw, like me.
You think, are you an outlaw?
Ooh, I was one of the first outlaws.
How were you an outlaw?
I was the black sheep.
Why were you a black sheep?
That's what they call me, the
Well,
black sheep.
tell me why. They tell me
I
I
am,
am, but I'm not anymore.
I don't know why. I was...
My fascination with the family began with my late Uncle Yosef, who translated the Quran and 1001 Nights from Arabic into Hebrew. He used to spin stories about the family when they lived in the Jewish quarter of the old city. Ancestors came alive, heroic. Through him, I learned about Yichus, our family lineage, and about our intimate connection to Jerusalem. I grew up in Jerusalem surrounded by cousins, aunts, uncles, an endless array of relatives. I thought everyone in Jerusalem was related. That's Minna, my great-grandmother, surrounded by her family. That's me, right underneath Baba Minna. I didn't know her story then. I only knew that when she put her hand on my head and blessed me, I trembled because she was the closest thing to God that I could imagine. This is Baba Minna's third husband and second cousin, Reb Yoshe. He is the family hero. He felt the spirit of King David was reincarnated in him. When Reb Yoshe and Baba Minna were young in the 1840s, there were 5,000 Jews squeezed into the Jewish quarter of the old city. At least 150 were their relatives.
Baba Minna's grandchildren. We're all Baba Minna's grandchildren.
Where did you come from?
I came from New York, but the family's here a long time, as you know.
I am the grandchild from Yoshe Rivlin.
Harold Shapiro.
Okay.
And my paternal grandmother was the sister of the famous Baba Minna.
My grandmother was Rashka, who was the daughter of Reb Yosef.
Reb Yoshe?
Reb Yoshe.
Oh, so you are a great...
She's my aunt's daughter.
Granddaughter. Right. And this is your aunt.
This is Vivian, is my cousin from Egypt.
When I was 8, my parents, sister, and I left Jerusalem. I became an immigrant child in America with yearnings for my tribal roots. So when I received an invitation to the tribe's reunion, I knew I had to go. I contacted the committee, the elders of the tribe, the ones who organized this mammoth event. That's my Aunt Rachel, the family matriarch. Formerly on the Jerusalem municipality, she's my father's sister, born Rivlin, married my Uncle Yosef, also a Rivlin. That's Asher, whose mother and father were both Rivlins. That's Moshe from another branch, world chairman of the Jewish National Fund. And there's the man who made it happen, Gidon, a professional conference maker. There's an old joke in Jerusalem. If you throw a stone, you'll either hit a Rivlin or a dog. Everywhere I turn, there is family. President Navon of Israel holds a reception for us.
ברוכים הבאים, משפחת ריבלין. בתור עולה ותיק בירושלים.
As an old settler in Jerusalem, I want to receive the Rivlin family, the new immigrants, who are only here 170 years, and I am already here 340 years.
My father was a Rivlin, and my husband was a Rivlin, and my great-father was a Rivlin, and my grandfather was a Rivlin, and my great-great-great-great-great-great... Serious?
She's both sides Rivlin.
Eight great-grandfathers.
I am drawn like a moth to the heat of the tribe. At a time when families are said to be dying, here is one that is flourishing. Those are my father's 7 sisters, Minna's granddaughters. They have energy like my father, and they never gossip.
The Jerusalem branch what do you think this branch is most known for? The man.
Money.
Mom.
If you need a good, nice flat, a good mortgage, just
It's another branch of the Parush, and they are known well in Jerusalem, the builders of Jerusalem.
Oh, thank you very
And
much.
his son, of course, also a nechet of Moshe
introduce me to him as well.
I'm from both sides. I'm from both sides. From both sides.
These are the Schulzens and Romarovskis. The rabbis, they are the mohels, the circumcisers, the undertakers. They preserve ritual from birth through death.
We were all brought up, at least the grandchildren were brought up, with the memory of, not with all the memory, but with the presence of our grandmother, who is our real tie to the Rivlin family, that is Rivka Leah Rivlin.
It was her mission in life to raise 5 rabbis, and whatever that daughter would be, she was going to be a Rebbitzin.
Rivlins are scattered around the world, in many countries and on all the continents. But the heart and center of our family, as for our people, is here in Israel, is here in Yerushalayim. We can be compared to the human bloodstream. The blood courses through every part of the body, but it has to come back to the heart if life is to continue.
We walked around the Mount of Olives, my cousin Ruby and I, and Benjamin, the family chronicler. I felt I was walking on tribal ground. Would you ever leave Jerusalem?
Oh, of course not. Actually, I left for Eilat when I was in the army, and Eilat was a very new city, and I thought maybe I'll go and live there. And my father asked me, why should you? So I said, everyone should go. Everyone should go and build the country. So he said, but we built Jerusalem. I said, yes, but Jerusalem is the big city. So he used to say to me, yes, but Jerusalem was a very little city. A very little city. We built it here. It's our town.
This is the tomb of Rabbi Eliyahu Yosef Rivlin, your grandfather's grandfather. He was a very big scholar and one of the most important rabbis in Yerushalayim. These columns were lying in the old city. They were remains of old buildings, and they put it on the tombs of the most important rabbis of Jerusalem.
The tens of thousands buried on the Mount of Olives were laid to rest with their heads facing east and their feet west, so that at the resurrection of the dead, they will stand up from their graves with their faces turned towards Jerusalem.
Where are the women? I never understand where the women are here.
Well, the women died or later or earlier than the men. Therefore, they are not buried together.
Although the women are strong in this family, tradition keeps them separated both in the cemetery and in the synagogue.
Now, look at the family tree, which begins 400 years ago.
In each generation, there has been a chronicler. They have always been men. Like his father before him, Benjamin records the family's history. That's the Gaon of Vilna, the great scholar of modern Jewish history, who led the opposition to the Hasidim. He told his disciples it was time to return to Zion because when Jerusalem's population reached 600,000, the Messiah would come. The family split between the supporters of the Gaon and the Hasidim. Hillel was a cousin of the Gaon of Vilna and the first Rivlin to come to Jerusalem. He was among a group of idealists who traveled for 10 months by land and sea until they reached the shores of Palestine. When Hillel arrived in 1809, he found Jerusalem a neglected town in the Ottoman Empire. For the Jew, who prayed to Jerusalem 3 times a day, the city was a magnet, but few could withstand the difficult journey. For Hillel and his associates, it was not enough to pray and study Torah. the city had to be built and populated.
Here we have the letter of Rabbi Hillel Rivlin. He was the first, he was the son of Rabbi Benjamin Rivlin, and he came to Jerusalem 170 years ago and lived here almost 30 years. Rabbi Hillel Rivlin, when he came to Jerusalem, he brought with him sacks of money, golden coins, to live on this money.
Hillel lent his gold to Christians and Arabs. Times were hard and he lost his money. In a letter to his wealthy son-in-law in Shklov, he writes
that he wants the money to buy wood to heat the synagogue of the family. Because, he says, if we don't heat the synagogue, then people will go to the other synagogues to pray.
The family was so large they had their own synagogue. You didn't know that your father's grandfather was this famous rabbi, right?
What did I know about it?
Yeah.
Nobody told me until they told me then. That. And 40 cents today will buy you a cup of coffee.
You mean the yichus?
The yichus in the Rivlin family.
Yichus means lineage. It is part of the connective tissue of the tribe. To my father it means little. To me it's part of my tie to this family. Past and present come together at family reunions. We watch a 4-hour pageant of episodes from the family's history. We are in the present, with our heads turned to the past. For the family, Yichus is Reb Yoshe, Minna's third husband. Reb Yoshe was a pioneer driven by the Gaon's vision to populate Jerusalem by moving outside the old city. Until then, only hyenas lived in the wilderness surrounding the city walls. My Aunt Rachel, Minna's granddaughter, now the family matriarch, led us through one of the quarters which Reb Yoshe built.
If you look up on top there, you'll see the name Joseph Rivlin Street. This was named after the first Rivlin and the first Jew who left the old city and came to settle. There were came to settle here in Nachlat Shiva, which means the quarter of the sevens.
And according to the story, Moshe Meged,
that's our great-grandfather, great-great-great-grandfather.
Right,
yes.
But Yosef Rivlin's grandfather came to him in a dream.
Yes.
And he said, if you build a Jewish neighborhood outside of the old city walls, yes, your wife will conceive.
Yeah.
And according to the legend, at least, well, it wasn't the legend, it actually happened that way, is that really as soon as he built his house and did come to live in the house, his wife conceived and they had a daughter.
Orthodox Jews, their heritage bred in them passivity, difficulty in changing the conditions under which they lived. And here came a man who grew up in this community and, inspired by the message of one of his great ancestors, had the idea that we're going to bring the Mashiach, we're going to bring the Messiah by helping to settle Jews in this land once again and helping to expand the city of Jerusalem. That is the way to bring the Messiah.
Well, I consider myself a sixth generation is Jerusalemite. That I was born in England was due to my parents. Grandpa did quite well in London at the time, and for some reason or other, I don't know why he left, and we all went to America, where I got my education, and then at 22 and a half, I came back here. This was the place that was built by Reb Yoshe. 53 and a half years ago, I came here and found our Bobby Minnie standing with her hands outstretched like this to receive me. That was quite something. Now, Bobby Minnie lived here. The room was much nicer at that time. You didn't see the shredding paint on there then. And I lived here with her for about a month.
Minna was a 45-year-old widow with 3 children when relatives suggested that she marry her cousin Yoshe. also a widower with 9 of his own. Yoshe objected to the marriage. He wanted no more children. "Oh, she's too old to have children," said the relatives. They married. 10 months later, Minna had a son. 10 days after his birth, Reb Yoshe died. Years later, Minna told her granddaughter Rachel, "You know, those 10 months were the best time in my life." Asher and David. Their mother was Minna's daughter. Their father was Reb Yoshe's son. No wonder they grew up to be family historians.
Do you recognize it?
This is one of Reb Yoshe's quarters where they grew up.
We were 9. At that time, yes, we were 9. Now 7. All our quarrels, all our political debates, and all our threats and songs took place mostly in this well, mainly in the summertime. And this courtyard was filled with fathers singing pupils, students. Because there were always scores of singers here, fathers, because he was a cantor and he had a big choir.
He was quite a Bohemian in the way of life he led. At that time, we were really on the border of the old and the new, the Yiddish and the Hebrew.
You can illustrate it. You know, when we moved in here, we still went to Orthodox yeshiva. But as we went along, we already became different.
I don't belong to the same party. We never belonged to the same party.
I was the black sheep because in my father's household, I went to a rather leftist youth movement, so-called socialist Zionist youth movement, whereas they remained conservative or right-wingers. He still is a conservative.
But the true black sheep of the tribe is Labeler Wisefish. Foreign minister of the sect opposed to the state of Israel because the Messiah did not create it. Wisefish is a phylactery maker and an international expert on philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. Wisefish was not invited to the family reunion. What would you say are the main differences between you and your opponents?
Impossible to make main difference, but
it is impossible to say what is the main difference, but generally I cannot say that we are extremely against the Zionist state. What we are saying, the main point is that Jewish is not a politician. Jewish is a religion.
Jewish is only religious.
What do you wish for Jerusalem?
We are not asking to whom does Jerusalem belong. We are asking if I belong to Jerusalem. If the problem is to whom does Jerusalem belong, then Jerusalem becomes a reason for the danger in an atomic world. When the question becomes if I belong to Jerusalem, then Jerusalem is for everybody, the beginning of a reason for peace forever.
Wisefish and Menachem Porush, a member of parliament and in the Begin coalition, grew up together. Now they stand at opposite ends of the political spectrum where Israel is concerned. You and I have different opinions on politics and observances. What is it that we have in common?
I have always the feeling that the Jewish people is not only a people, a nation, that's like a family. And especially when I know my grandfather was your grandfather. This is what our Torah says to us. The same thing like it told us to keep Shabbat. What can be more than to keep Shabbat? It told us you should not remove yourself from your own flesh. Family is flesh.
Family is flesh. It means Menachem Porush, who voted against the abortion bill, comes to my aid when I ask for 2 Orthodox men to appear in a film. It means Wisefish gives me an interview. Family is a dialogue with the past. As I unraveled the past, I discovered Meir from Bournemouth, England, whose branch settled in Hebron. Meir was born in Palestine and left for England in 1937.
I lost connection with most of the family except my sister until my son volunteered during the 6-Day War.
I've always been very aware that The family were connected with the state of Israel because my father was born in Jerusalem. My grandfather was born in Hebron. They always talked about Israel, so when the time came, I came.
Do you think that we're aristocracy? Because a lot of people resent that. What do you think?
Depends what you mean by aristocracy. I mean, there's aristocracy as far as monetary terms or blood or whatever's involved. But aristocracy as far as, how to say, the Judaism, Israel goes, because you go back so far, and it's pure the blood. Do you agree, Daddy?
You can call it today you should call it an Israeli aristocracy.
I wouldn't agree with you, Father. The only reason we've survived as a family intact, the only reason that we survived, and the only reason that we've developed as a family is because we're Jews. And because we suffered over the centuries as Jews suffered, and we experienced, we were at some of the great turning points in Jewish history. There were Rivlins there.
We were there in 1939 when the horrors of the Holocaust began in Europe. Most of the family had already left Russia. Dov and Norman, two cousins, remnants of a branch which was annihilated, took a few hours off from the reunion to visit Yad Vashem, the memorial to the 6 million.
When I came here in 39, I knew that I have here a family, but I haven't met them. But in the year 40, about 40 or 41, they found me. I received a letter from them, came over to Jerusalem, found here not a family but a tribe, as you say, and since then I'm a part of them.
I am part of them. The same words are repeated. Even those who did not grow up in Jerusalem feel related.
I am Berta Rivlin, born in Russia, Grodno, 1898. In 1980, I married Misha Rivlin, who came from Moscow.
My name is Fima Rivlin. I was born in Grodno, and as a small baby was brought to Danzig.
We stayed there till 38, till Hitler came to Germany.
I knew that I had family in Palestine because my father told me he had met several of his relatives who were Sabras from Jerusalem, I think. I carry the same name as the rest of the tribe, and there's a certain tradition involved which has always made me feel that I belong to this tribe.
Their branch of the family found shelter in Palestine just as the war broke out in Europe. But in Palestine, 1942 was a frightening year. The immediate threat was the approach of General Rommel's army.
A whole delegation came here of the Arab notables. They spoke and spoke. You know, Arabs have a tendency of talking around the bush until they come to the bush. It's how are you, what is this child doing and that child doing, until they came to the point and said, you know that Rommel is down in Egypt and he plans to come here. So we come to invite you to come to our homes in Bethlehem or wherever we wish to go so that we can protect you. That Yosef looked at them, each one separately, in such a way, and I wondered to myself, after it was interpreted to me, I didn't understand their Arabic, what they said, and I just wondered now what he is going to answer. He turned and said to them, now look here, my dears, by the same token, the tables can be turned, so my house is open to you.
Only 5 years before the war broke out in 48, here were Arabs and Jews offering one another the protection of their homes. But 1948 did happen, and fighting erupted as the Jewish state came into being. The tribe was split. Some followed David Ben-Gurion, the labor Zionist. Others were behind Menachem Begin, the militant. Jerusalem fell under siege. For the city's 100,000 Jewish residents, the main battle was over the road linking them to the coast, to food and water.
We were rationed just so many cups or glasses of water per day. Something hot we hadn't had for days and days, when I finally realized that this samovar could be used again after 100 years. We got out of the shelter, I think on Tuesday, and on Saturday was Baba Minna's 100th birthday. The shops were absolutely empty, but I found some place here and there, some peanuts and some poly seeds and dried up dates, and that's what we brought to her home. Then we made a l'chaim to Baba Minna, and she was so grateful to me that I did do something for her at such a time. I become so emotional when I think of the entire thing. And we sat down, the two of us, and sort of became philosophical. It was just a pleasure to talk to that woman. When I looked at her and I thought to myself, my God, this lady is 100 years of age, more sensible than I can ever be. And at the end, when I said I had to go, she said, look, my daughter, mein Kind, she always said, we came through this war. The gates to the old city are closed to us. I will not live to see it opened, but you will. And I've always had that in mind. We did.
The gates of the old city did in fact open, but only 19 years later. Members of the tribe returned to Israel in 1967 to help in the Six-Day War. I was one of them. Danny from Leeds, England also returned in '67, but did not settle in Israel. Why were you prepared to give up your life, but not to live here?
Well, personally, I think it's easier to die in Israel than to live in Israel, but this is my personal point of view. But I come back, and I keep taking the punishment. I come back at minimum 2 times a year, if possible 3 or 4 times a year. And I keep trying to do business here, and perhaps I like punishment, I don't know, but I keep trying.
The children get fed up living here. They go to the Golden Medina.
Right.
And they get fed up in the Golden Medina, so their children come back here. And that's the way it goes.
Reuben from Russia is the most recent of his branch to come to Israel. His mother told him of her large family in Palestine. During World War II, he was the voice of Leningrad. Today, he's with Israeli radio. Reuven finds his name in the family genealogy compiled by Benjamin's father.
This is the Sefer HaYachas.
Oh, yeah.
You know, he put a tree here, and it's written, tree, what shall I bless you? May God give that your offsprings should be like you.
Fruitful.
Yes.
There are 4,000 names there.
It's extraordinary. It's kind of like an interlocking circle. What I do, my business, is antiquarian rare books. What excites me about that, what got me interested in it, was the concept of the continuity of generation to generation. Before I even knew this, of generation to generation, the idea of holding something in your hand, of touching a book, communication, mind, intellect, whatever, that someone held 400 years ago. This is just, to me, so exciting. And then to come here and see a living monument to this kind of thing, the reason that I do what I do, and here it is right out, in addition to which you talk about at one point last night, the family history of 500 years. Well, it's 500 years since the beginning of the printed word. It's almost like an aura. And it's extraordinary. That's why I'm touched. I'm touched everywhere I look. There seem to be pointers that this is where we had to be now with this occasion. And I'm thankful.
You're a great-grandson of the famous Reb Yoshe. Why didn't you come to the reunion of our tribe?
Because it's a crazy thing, the whole business of the Rivlins making all this fuss about themselves. It's very pathetic, I think.
Because you're the first Rivlin in more than 200 years to change your name. What are you rejecting, and in favor of what?
We're in favor of this family becoming just a normal family instead of treating themselves as the chosen tribe of the chosen people. And in fact, I think the whole occasion is a sign of mediocrity.
Hell no. I think it's amazing. When I hear about what this one did or what that one did, that's me. That's a Jew. I mean, that's fulfilling what it is to be a mensch.
Another leaf is added to the Shulson branch of the family as Reuven Levi and Diana are wed. Like his father and uncles before him, he too will be a rabbi.
This is the tree of the generations to the family of Rivlin, its branches and its sources. The young couple getting married today will be among the Shulsons, the Ramborovskis, and all their descendants in this branch. So this is a continuity dating back to the same age as George Washington in the United States, which was about 300 years.
A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever, and there is nothing new under the sun. It's hard to be part of a tribe. I'm aware of being alone and individual. I'm not in Jerusalem because I feel constrained there. But I feel constrained, it's a small place. Most of my dreams take place in Jerusalem. I expect to go back and die in Jerusalem. What's the meaning of family? It means survival. It means you're not alone.